Alright everybody, welcome back to another video on how to use a lathe. Today, the main goal of today's video is to learn how to cut a 90-degree shoulder on a part and have that shoulder be a specific length and be accurate from the end of your part. So on our part, we have completed all the way through step 80, okay, or step 8. Our next step is to turn this 2-inch length down to 5/8 diameter. Okay, so it's a smaller diameter than 3/4. 5/8 decimal equivalent for that is 0.625. Okay, so I want to turn it down to 0.625. Currently, my part measures. We'll do some math here. Currently, my part measures 0.875. Okay. I need to get it down to 0.625. Okay, so if I do some math here, we need to remove a 1/4 inch, or 0.250 remove. Okay. Remember, we're gonna keep it large when we're rough cutting, so I'm only gonna maybe remove 0.235. 0.235. I always like to give myself 15 thousandths for finish cutting, so I'm going to remove 0.235. Okay, so that's the math behind it. That's what we need to remove on our part. Okay, next step was to lay out a line 2 inches from the end that was just faced off. So you need to blue your part and do that. I just did that already. I'll show you. Laid out a line that is 2 inches, 2 inches from this end of your part. Okay, so 2 inches from that end. Use some bluing, use a dial caliper, lay it out. You should know how to do that. So we're moving on to the next step here. It says rough turn the 5/8 diameter 10 thousandths over the high limit, so 0.650. Stay 1/32 to 1/16 short of the 2-inch line. Okay, note, make sure your tool has enough clearance when you are close to the chuck. We're also going to be using the 1-inch travel indicator again. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do that. So first step is you want to set up your tool for turning and for facing. So I'm going to zoom in here. We want clearance on our tool. I brought my tool into this inside corner on my chuck, between my part and my chuck. Okay, and I want to make sure there is an air gap on the left and an air gap on the front. Okay, so we have clearance on the left, clearance on the front. The point of my tool is the only thing that's on that inside corner. Okay, so that's very important. You set your tool up like that. Bring your tool to your scribe line. Okay, so the point of your tool to your scribe line, as far as you would ever go, and then make sure your chuck rotates freely. Okay, you can disengage your belt. I'm going to zoom out here. Make sure your chuck rotates freely. Okay, it doesn't hit your tool. We're working pretty close to the chuck here. Whenever you adjust your tool, it's a good idea. Make sure your chuck has clearance from your tool. Okay, so we got clearance. Our tool is adjusted properly for turning and for facing, because we want to reach the point of our tool in an inside corner. So that's why we need to set our tool up just like so. Okay, so you set your tool up. You're going to select a rough cutting feed rate, and you're going to power your carriage because we're turning. We're going to be working from right to left. And I'm just going to show you one cut. So I'm going to start my lathe, add a bit of oil to my part. Okay, I am going to scratch my part, and this is the same concept we've been doing. Scratch my part, zero out my cross slide. Okay, and our golden number was we wanted to remove 235 thousandths, so we're almost doing one full revolution on our cross slide. So I'm gonna move my tool to the right, engage some depth of cut. So I'm gonna crank my tool to 20 thousandths, and we're just gonna, remember, don't do any more than 20 thousandths depth of cut. So this is gonna take many passes. This is gonna take 12 passes, if my math is correct. Okay, so start cutting. Your tool should be traveling from right to left. I'm going to show you one of these cuts, and then we're going to jump forward all the way to the end. Okay, so this part is really important. You're going to stop your tool short, okay? And we always want to stop our tool short of that scribe line that we made, okay? So we're always going to stop a 16th to a 32nd short. We are not going to the scribe line right away, okay? Eventually we're going to work our way to that scribe line using the travel indicator. But I repeat once again, we are not machining to the scribe line right away. You're going to stay to the right of it, a 16th or a 32nd of an inch, okay? Alright, so I'm going to show you, so far I have removed 140 thousandths, and I'm just getting this right side of the part. It's about at the same diameter as the left side. Eventually it's going to be smaller diameter, 5/8. The left is 3/4. Notice right now, I'm just turning this by hand now, and I am staying short of the scribe line, okay? So somewhere right about here, I'm going to stop. I'm about a 16th of an inch short, okay? I'm going to give myself some extra to play with here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to stop in that same spot every time, okay? So I'm going to gauge more depth of cut. We're going to go to 160 thousandths. I'm going to start this up. Probably add a bit more oil to my part. Okay. And then stop it by hand. Short, and then so I stopped the clutch just short. Now I'm going to finish cutting with my carriage, moving it by hand. And remember, you're stopping short of your scribe line. We do not want to go to our scribe line yet, and we definitely don't want to go past it. So I'm stopping short of that scribe line. So now I'm going to keep doing this until my dial reads 235, just like we talked about earlier. And your part might be a little bit different, okay? But you use what you calculated. I needed to remove 235 thousandths, so I'm going to do that with rough cutting. So we're going to catch up to you when I'm that far. Alright, so we are this far, okay? I am at 235 thousandths, or just about. So I'm about 15 thousandths oversized with my diameter still. That's good. We're going to switch gears to finish cutting, okay? So I'm going to bring it to my finish cutting gear, which is up here. I'm going to change that. Okay, we switched gears. One thing I do want to note is we're going to stop our lathe with our tool still touching our part. Okay, this is like the only time you're ever going to do it. Your tool is still touching your part. We're definitely not moving our carriage, okay? So do not move your carriage. What you're going to do is you need to perform a step measurement on your part using a dial caliper, okay? So I'm going to grab my dial caliper, and I am going to, there is a slight step on my part, okay? There's like a very small 90-degree shoulder if you did this properly. I'm going to bump my dial caliper into that 90-degree shoulder, and then I'm going to get this part of it onto the end of my part. Okay, kind of like that. Okay, so perform this step measurement, and then you're gonna read the measurement. Okay, so I am at 1.96 inches. Okay, 1.96. We want it to read 2 inches, so that means I still need to move my carriage 40 thousandths to the left. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up our 1-inch travel indicator once more, and we're going to magnet it to the ways of our lathe, and I'm going to get my needle till it's just about at the top, zero it out. Okay. Now I'm going to start up my lathe. Okay. And I am going to move my carriage. I'm going to move my carriage to the left. Okay. And we're going to go 20 thousandths to the left. We needed to move 40 thousandths, so I'm going to go 20 thousandths to the left, and I'm going to crank it in slowly, okay? Cranking my cross slide. Now what I'm doing is I'm going to that same 235 thousandths. I accidentally went a little over, so don't do what I just did by mistake. Go to that same 235 thousandths. I'm now going to go move my carriage to the left once more to 40 thousandths, okay? And I'm going to move this really slow, trying to go to that 235 thousandths. Okay, so somewhere right in there. Our 90-degree shoulder is now established, okay? All we need to do now is we are going to finish turn our part. So I'm going to move my carriage to the right. Okay. And as soon as this reaches that 40 thousandths, the first pass, is when we stop cutting. Okay, so I'm going to engage my clutch here. It's going to cut. And then I'm going to stop my carriage just short of that 40 thousandths, finish up by hand, okay? And then we just cut our part down to the correct diameter, stopping your carriage right at that 90-degree shoulder, and then your part should be finished if you did it correctly. The only other thing you got to do to this part is add the chamfer, okay? So that is how you cut a 90-degree shoulder accurately.